Oh, Pin Mill.
The one about the landing.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I think it must have been, again, our first visit to Pin Mill. Glorious sail up the river. It was the end of the afternoon, and it was a lovely summer's day, probably June again, I would guess. It's that sort of feel about it anyway. And we were very anxious to get to Pin Mill because we'd run short of various stores and wanted to go ashore and quickly top them up, you know, vital things like milk and so on. And we knew we could do it there because in all of Jack Mill's boats, there was always a copy of East Coast Rivers, which was just a wonderful book, a bit like Wainwright for the Fells. You sort of can't sail without it. So we'd read up what it was like to go to Pin Mill, and we were coming up on the very last of the tide. Not that it matters there because the moorings are quite nicely deep, but it did matter for getting ashore, of course. But we were very reassured because the East Coast Rivers guide said landing may be affected at all states of the tide. So I was detailed to go ashore in the dinghy from the mooring and do the shopping while Lawrence did all the stuff on board to tidy up and what have you. So I quickly rowed to the end of the Hard, was in a hurry, went to step out of the dinghy, and to my horror, the Hard had run out. There was no more Hard, and I couldn't get any closer. It must have been the lowest of the lowest spring tides, and quite remarkably, no Hard was there. And it's a very ungainly manoeuvre getting back into a dinghy that you've tried to step out of. It's not very elegant and you feel very foolish. So step back, and I did without tipping everything over. And of course I had to go back to the boat, no shopping, no nothing, and explained what had happened. But of course we went ashore in the evening to go to the wonderful Button Oyster on the Hard at Pin Mill, top of the Hard. And of course, inevitably, my little incident had been seen, as I knew it would be, by, I can't remember who now, but they thought it was very funny.